Hi all, let me tell you a story about a chicken feed farmer. There was this chicken feed farmer and he went out to feed his chickens. And on his way out, he came across a barn. And in the barn, you could see from the roof that there was a slate missing. So he goes into the barn and says, I've got to fix this. Grabs the ladder, notices there's a rung broken on the ladder, says, I've got to fix this. Goes along and gets the saw, which is all rusty, got to fix this. Gets the oil can, no oil in the can, got to fix this. On his way down to the town, meets Dave, goes off and has a coffee, and nobody knows if the chickens ever got fed. What follows over the next 7 to 10 minutes or so, folks, is just a little snapshot from a Lunch and Learn webinar that we did for a client of ours on time management. So I'm just going to give you a snapshot, give you some of the basics around the model and so forth, and perhaps we can help you in terms of a day's training or short webinar, whatever that may be. Okay, so folks, first of all, we're going to have a little parallel here with music, just to give it a bit of synthesis. You probably notice from these two guys here, one is obviously Mick Jagger and the other guy is Keith Richards. Mick Jagger was always highly organised, very regimental, always planned tomorrow, today, whereas Keith Richards was just happy to wake up the next day. The method that we share over training is a very simple one. It's management by the compass rather than the clock. So it's one of these fellas rather than one of these fellas. And it's really about a 4 anchor piece that helps you become more efficient and more effective. And here it is. It's basically, the trick is that you start off with targets or goals, what you plan to achieve. Then step 2 is effectively, what are your priorities? What needs to happen to achieve those particular goals? Thirdly, then you tap into your resources and not your priorities. People are a resource, as is the 24 hours that you have on your clock is a resource as well. So smart performers who excel in terms of objectives plan by what needs to happen and why, and use resources to best effect. So I'm going to give you a quick drill down on each of them. Targets essentially is just really the fuel in the furnace. Have goals written down, both for the short term and the long term, personal and professional goals. So important. I went to see a rock band in the 80s, not called The Police, although they played as well, but the backup band was U2, and I thought U2 were one of the best bands ever, and I still think that today, 40 years or so later. And I thought to myself, God, one day I'm going to meet those guys one way or another, and lo and behold, within a period of time, I bumped into Bono and he signed my ticket for me. Fantastic. And instantly he put on the side, still learning. We're always learning, and that's why you've tapped into this today, to see if you can pick up a few tips and tricks. So even a band that's been as successful as them over the last 40 years, the leader of the band always says he's still learning. So hence, that's the power of goals and learning. Step 2, as we mentioned, is priorities, and the best way to explain that very quickly is through this particular model here. It's been around quite a while, and very simply how it works is executives that exceed expectations spend more time in boxes A and B. A is action, something's important and urgent, there's consequences, get it done or else. B doesn't have to be done today, but over a period of time it may become an A if it's not addressed. Something like installing antivirus software on your PC would be a B task. Curtail is C, things that are urgent but not necessarily important. You know, for example, we got a request to fill in a questionnaire on how well this car company serviced our car, and they wanted it by lunchtime. I said, look, we'll do it, but not by lunchtime. To them it's urgent, for me it's not. So I got to curtail it. D tasks, best forgotten about, folks, delete. And spend more time in the A's and B's than the C's and D's. And sometimes it's nice to just look back and see how much time in your day you spent on A and B tasks, and how much time you spent on C and D. Okay, moving on to people management. We can address this through a number of different ways, but one thing that can really impact performance is whether people you've got alongside you, whether they're clients or co-workers or managers, do they help or do they hinder you? And a nice way of getting a sense as to how to work them better is to get a sense of the personality. And this is Insights Colors, an instrument we've used for years, in fact, for clients, and still do. And it's really about getting a sense as to what your personality is, because if you understand yourself, you'll probably understand others better and be able to work better with them. So the fiery red is entrepreneurial type, working with these people. Be bright, be brief, be gone. The yellow personality preferences, again, they're also extroverts. Involve them in everything you do. They never want to be left out. So good, efficient communication is key here. Earth greens, we find a lot of people in HR in the earth green space. Good listeners. Introverted rather than extroverted, and show me you care is a good modus operandi in terms of working with those. And the cool blues is really about give them the information. Accountants, engineers, facts and figures, they love all that, and you'll communicate better. So even through email, have a think about who's at the far end of the line there, what's their preference, and adjust your email accordingly. Okay, coming back to the music theme, you could see these are 4 guys who play in a band and have done for over 40 years. It's the U2 guys, and we did a little bit of research on these guys, and we came up with the view and created a nice little booklet as well. You're welcome to get one of these. If you drop us a note, we'll post one out to you. But we basically felt that one of the reasons they were so successful was the fact that they're all different personalities. Adam, of course, being the green, Bono the yellow, the red being Edge, and Larry Mullen being a blue. So they were all different, but equally they respected and encouraged the differences, and we think that was a key factor. And their longtime producer Brian Eno had this to say about them through his lens. Okay, so moving on, I'm going to give you some quick tips. Again, there's much more detail that we get into over the course of a day's training, but for now, here's 5 proven time management tips, folks. You've got to be able to see your high and low priorities. You've got to see the wood from the trees, and you've got to get a sense as to why you're on the payroll. Yeah, what's on your job description? You've got to be able to classify them in terms of high and low priorities. I would do this in terms of a personal management system, which I've used for years. I use it in addition to electronic means of the best of both worlds, and it helps me see the high and low priorities. Tip 2 is plan by the week rather than the day. Okay, the week will give you a bucket of 40 hours, as distinct from a day, which is 8 hours. 40 hours, you'll see things that you wouldn't perhaps see in the window of a daytime. So you'll be able to plan accordingly. You'll spot some key initiatives, guaranteed. Third one is, I know it's tough, but think about tomorrow, today, just before you sign off. Get a sense as to what tomorrow is looking like and what can you fit into that particular schedule. And that will let you hit the ground running first thing in the morning. And they say a good start to the morning is a good start to the day. Number 4, have pause points, particularly if you're working remotely, folks. It's very important that you refuel, recharge, reset the dial. So do the task, finish it, but take a little breather before you dive into the next task. That's all very important. And we take time out to recharge our phones, but how much time do we take out to recharge our minds? Finally, schedule the plan. If you're working remotely, you probably have check-in team meetings the same time every week, and they're rarely cancelled. That's the power of scheduling, folks. So what do you schedule for yourself in terms of ensuring that things happen that really matter? So there's 5 tips, folks. Guaranteed, if you live those 5 tips, in addition to managing people better, being clear on goals and prioritizing accordingly, you will be a lot more effective. So there's our method, folks. Targets, priorities, people, and time, using 24 hours to best effect. Great book, folks. Really good having a look at in terms of all the resources that are there. Is this one here, which is Good Vibes, Good Life. Just getting through this myself. Really good for people in their 20s in terms of getting them a sense, giving them a sense as to what works well in terms of time and life management. That's Vex King's book. Plenty of resources there, of course, and by all means drop me an email and get in touch. So folks, guaranteed, if you just apply even a couple of those tips, it's more than likely that you being the farmer, your chickens will get fed. Best of luck. Go celebrate the learning.